The 2025-26 Celtics win projections leave everyone speechless. Something shocking is happening in Boston. The numbers are out, and they tell a story few expected, a story that could redefine how the NBA looks at the Celtics this season. But the real question is, are analysts underestimating a team that has rewritten history before? Before we dive into the twists, hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the hype bell so you don't miss the moments that could mark the Celtics' most unpredictable season in years. Let's start with the headline everyone's talking about. ESPN's Kevin Pelton projects Boston to win 45.6 games this season. That's higher than ESPN BET's 40.5 over-under, but lower than what Celtics fans are used to. On paper, it suggests a step back. But here's where it gets fascinating. Despite the modest projection, Boston is still expected to finish fifth in the East, ahead of Milwaukee, Atlanta, and Detroit. How could a team stripped of veterans and facing so many doubts still rank above powerhouses? The answer might lie in what people aren't talking about. Too many eyes are on who left, names like Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis, Luke Kornet, and Jrue Holiday. But Pelton drops a truth that could flip the narrative. Boston still has 8 players rated above league average, tying for the 8th highest total in the entire NBA. That depth matters, especially in a season where every possession will test chemistry and endurance. Still, the season carries uncertainty. Jayson Tatum's absence after a torn right Achilles changes everything. Many analysts rush to declare the Celtics out of contention, but what if this injury sparks something unexpected? What if the pressure transforms players like Jaylen Brown and Derek White into leaders of a new era? Boston's front office might flirt with the idea of trimming salary to avoid luxury tax penalties, but does that mean giving up on the season or reshaping it strategically? The Celtics haven't finished below 46 wins since 2014, excluding the pandemic season. That's over a decade of dominance, of rebuilding and reinventing without collapsing. So the question isn't whether Boston can win 45 games, it's whether the NBA is ready for a version of the Celtics that no one has ever seen before, one that wins not through star power, but through cohesion, resilience, and a collective chip on the shoulder. As preseason tips off against the Memphis Grizzlies, the stakes feel different. Every possession, every rotation, every defensive stand will be dissected. Will this be the year Boston proves that culture and identity outweigh projections and injuries? Because if history has taught us anything, it's that counting out the Boston Celtics never ends well for their doubters. The path may be uncertain, but in that uncertainty lies the perfect stage for a resurgence that could shock the league once again. The path may be uncertain, but in that uncertainty lies the perfect stage for a resurgence that could shock the league once again. And that stage revealed its first flash of fire in the preseason opener against the Memphis Grizzlies. What looked like just another exhibition game suddenly turned into a moment that said everything about the new identity of this team. Jaylen Brown, now the unquestioned leader of the Celtics, set the tone not with words, but with emotion. Midway through the second quarter, as he attacked the basket with his trademark intensity, Grizzlies guard Vince Williams Jr. reached across his arms in a hard, borderline reckless attempt to stop the play. What happened next was pure electricity. Brown shoved Williams, players rushed in, and the arena erupted. Both men were hit with technical fouls, but that wasn't the real story. The real story was that in that instant, Brown showed the league that this Celtics team will not bend, not even in a meaningless preseason game. But was it just adrenaline? Or was it a glimpse into the hunger that's been brewing inside this roster since Jayson Tatum's injury changed everything? Because make no mistake, Boston's locker room feels the weight of that loss.
Brown still looking for his first assist of the game, and he's called for the offensive foul. Whoa! Getting into it with Williams now. Here we go.
Jaylen Brown ain't playing around.
And Jaylen Brown knows it better than anyone. The eyes of an entire city are now fixed on him. And the shove, raw and emotional, was more than just frustration. It was a declaration. And then came the unexpected. Instead of unraveling after the altercation, the Celtics found rhythm.
Yeah, no hesitation. Not a point, not a threat.
Brown, visibly fired up, began to control the pace, orchestrating plays with confidence, pulling his teammates closer, talking more than ever before. You could see the shift. The body language changed, the tempo rose, and for the first time since the Achilles news about Tatum, the Celtics looked alive again. But what does this mean for the season ahead? The projections may say 45 wins, but emotion doesn't show up in algorithms. Heart doesn't translate into numbers. And Boston, at its core, has always thrived when underestimated. Brown's reaction symbolized what the analytics can't measure: pride, defiance, and the refusal to accept mediocrity. The confrontation with Vince Williams Jr. wasn't about hostility, it was about setting a tone. The Celtics were sending a message to every opponent watching: this team, even without its superstar, will fight for every inch. It's the kind of intensity that can carry over into the regular season, where small moments of attitude become turning points in close games. During last year's playoff run, Brown averaged over 22 points, 7 rebounds, and nearly 4 assists per game, while holding his own defensively against elite competition. But this year, those numbers aren't just statistics, they're the foundation of an evolution. Boston isn't just expecting him to score. They're expecting him to lead, to control tempo, to teach younger players what it means to wear green, and perhaps most importantly, to keep belief alive until Tatum returns. What nobody expected was how quickly Brown seems to have embraced that responsibility. After the game, the look in his eyes said everything. This wasn't about preseason or pride, it was about identity. The same fire that carried the Celtics to 11 straight playoff appearances is still burning, but it has a new face at its center. So now the question hanging over the NBA is simple. How far can Brown take this team? Can his leadership transform projections into a story of defiance and redemption? The Celtics' journey will not be easy, but the moment against the Grizzlies might have been the spark that lights the path. Because sometimes, one shove can tell you everything about a team's heart. Boston fans can feel it. The energy, the belief, the sense that something powerful is building beneath the surface. And as the season begins, one thing is certain: the Celtics aren't backing down. Not from physical play, not from low expectations, and definitely not from destiny. The fire is real, the message has been sent, and the league should pay attention. Something special is brewing in Boston, and it started with a single moment that nobody saw coming. Something special is brewing in Boston, and it started with a single moment that nobody saw coming. That fire, first glimpsed when Jaylen Brown stood his ground against the Grizzlies, has now spread through the entire organization. The preseason wasn't just a warm-up, it was a statement, and now the Celtics are showing that their edge isn't confined to game night. The real transformation began behind closed doors during what assistant coach Sam Cassell called the most brutal training camp he has ever witnessed in over 34 years in the NBA. But what makes this camp so different? Why does this one feel like the birth of something bigger? Cassell didn't hold back. "We want to be the hardest playing team in basketball," he said, describing a camp so demanding that even veterans were pushed to their limits. This isn't about drills or conditioning. It's about identity. It's about redefining what it means to wear Boston green when the world doubts you. Without Jayson Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, Jrue Holiday, Al Horford, and Luke Kornet, the Celtics are no longer a team of established stars and predictable sets. They're younger, hungrier, faster. Every scrimmage became a battle for survival. Every loose ball turned into a message. And under Joe Mazzulla's watchful eye, complacency simply didn't exist. Cassell described a camp where players left the gym drenched in sweat and silence, knowing that every drill could determine their place in Boston's new hierarchy. But here's where things get truly intriguing. This wasn't chaos. It was controlled fire. The Celtics coaches crafted a camp that forced chemistry to develop under pressure, where mistakes weren't punished, but refined. And with Jaylen Brown now the vocal heartbeat of the roster, the atmosphere was charged with something that statistics can't capture: belief. Brown's leadership has evolved beyond points and assists into something intangible yet essential. The players are responding, forming bonds that feel less like teammates and more like brothers in arms preparing for a mission. The timing couldn't be more crucial. Analysts may point to win projections and claim Boston is due for a step back, but inside the walls of their facility, a different narrative is being written. This team isn't rebuilding, it's regenerating. Cassell's words echo that mindset. This camp wasn't about surviving the season, it was about owning it. Mazzulla knows that this Celtics roster won't simply overpower opponents with sheer talent anymore. They'll have to grind out victories through intensity, defense, and relentlessness. They'll have to win every 50-50 ball, every rebound, every possession that separates contenders from dreamers. And the players are buying in. Young pieces like Peyton Pritchard, Nemias Queta, and Sam Hauser are no longer just role players. They're being tested, molded, and unleashed. Veterans are mentoring but also competing, knowing that the standard in Boston has been raised, not lowered. What nobody expected was that the loss of familiar faces might actually ignite a more united and determined core. So as the Celtics prepare to face Memphis again in the preseason, all eyes turn to see if that fire carries over. Can a camp built on pain, sweat, and belief translate into wins when the real games begin? Can Boston's youth-driven resilience surprise the league once again? One thing is certain. The Celtics aren't training for survival. They're training for redemption. This is not just another season. It's a proving ground. If you believe in this new era of Boston basketball, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap the hype bell so you never miss a single twist in what could be the Celtics' most electrifying journey yet.